Hello my beautiful starlings, Mark Maker here with a different kind of video than my usual variety. As my life continues to live, things both on and offline have been chaotic, to say the least. And I feel like the rest of you all can agree with me on that. So for the past few months, I've been getting more and more involved with a coping mechanism that I've found has been working well for me, and I'd like to discuss it with you all today because I feel that it's not only misunderstood, but also misrepresented in nearly every corner of the internet. But first, I'd like to present a little segment called Not Sponsored By, where I show you all something that I think is genuinely worthwhile and is not part of a paid deal or sponsorship. Ladies, germs, and all fellow Earthlings, this video is not sponsored by Artful. Artful calls itself the social network for artists and is an independent social media platform open to most forms of visual art. If you're looking for a place to upload your art that isn't Instagram, Twitter, or DeviantArt, I recommend trying out this one. It's free to join and use, the visual layout of user profiles works great as an online portfolio, and you can visit it online or download the app. And while you're there, consider giving me a follow and looking through my gallery. The link to my Artful profile will be in the description. Thank you very much for listening. Now back to the video. The coping mechanism that I've been trying out should come as no surprise to you if you've read the title of the video. Simply put, I'm an age regressor. But what is age regression? Well, age regression is
a kink! A twisted manifestation of the mad mind of this blue individual. Alert the presses, alert the masses. I want every paper plastered with the face of this blue freak so that everyone knows the true nature of this monster. I've come to make an announcement. Mark Maker's a bitch-ass motherfucker. No!
Age regression, also called agery for short, is not any of those things. Agery is not a kink, and it's not the same as age play, diaper fetishes, or done for sexual gratification of any kind. In fact, most people who run agery social media accounts do not want interactions from anyone whose accounts are kink-related and unsafe for children. Age regression is not a symptom of autism. Just because some autistic individuals may partake in age regression, it doesn't mean that every autistic person does it. So you shouldn't use it to gauge someone's neurodivergency. That being said, it's also not a symptom of developmental delays. When people age regress, it's a temporary thing, not full-time. So they're absolutely not the same thing. And no, if someone tells you in confidence that they engage in age regression, it's probably not a prank, especially if they express this repeatedly. It also shouldn't be used as a prank anyway, like you shouldn't use it coming out as a prank, or making pregnancy announcements, or faking your death as a prank. Age regression should be taken seriously, and if it ever is used as a prank, it can be detrimental to a community of people who are already misunderstood enough as it is. So then, if it's not all those things, I hear you asking, then exactly what is age regression? And for that, I'm going to refer you all to an explanation from an art commentary channel, Fiona Paulo, who went over a fictional character that age regresses in one of her videos. I'll be talking about that same character a little bit later on as well, but for now, age regression is described as a psychological phenomenon in which an individual temporarily reverts to behaviors, emotions, thought patterns, or memories that are characteristic of a younger age. It involves a shift in psychological functioning where a person's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors become aligned with a previous developmental stage. Age regression can occur consciously or unconsciously, and it's often linked to stress, trauma, or a desire for comfort and safety. It's like a rewind button for when an individual feels safe and in control of their environment, and it allows them to process their emotions in ways that the average person may not necessarily understand. A lot of the time, there's a big push from wider society for this kind of behavior to be fixed as a way for the victim's trauma to be considered cured, but that isn't really how things work. A person could age regress for the rest of their life, and honestly, if they're doing it in the safety of their own company, what's the problem? Not only that, but some people do experience some degree of age regression naturally, outside of traumatic events. Ever seen those videos where people are gifted sentimental teddy bears or toys from their childhood and they begin crying talking to the toy or referring to it with pronouns? That's also a form of age regression. It can also be something as small as being scared by something and immediately wanting comfort from an authority figure like a parent. To put it shortly, age regression is when one reverts to a younger mental or emotional state, whether it's as a coping mechanism or just for fun. And if it's not something that's hurting the person engaging in it or the people around them, then it isn't something that the person needs to have fixed. And when people enter that state of mind, it can also be referred to as entering little space. Now that you have an idea of what it is, I'd like to talk about my personal experience with Age Re and how it's helped me in particular. I tend to regress to around 3 to 8 years old, though more often on the younger end of that spectrum. The reasons why I regress actually tend to vary. Sometimes it happens as a stress response to help calm me down, and sometimes I do it when I'm alone to just enjoy having some time to be little. When I regress, I'm typically more prone to stimming, like stamping my feet and waving my hands, and I enjoy wearing colorful clothes or pajamas that have pictures and patterns on them, all the way down to my socks and shoes. Some of the things I like to do in little space include watching childhood shows, filling in coloring books with crayons and markers, and taking bubble baths with lots of toys and cute music. I also tend to have a larger desire to play with physical objects more than digital games, like blocks or Legos or Hot Wheels. Most of all, though, one of my favorite things to do when I'm in what's known as little space is use my pacifier. I should also mention that when I'm in little space, it isn't a separate personality. It's still me, just in the mindset and emotional state of a child. I'm still in control of everything that happens, and I can choose when I enter and leave little space. But I still refer to being in that state in the third person sometimes, using pronouns when referring to him, calling him little me or tiny me, using pronouns as you can tell, all that kind of stuff. It just makes it less confusing when I'm talking about times that I'm age regressing and when I'm not. However, there are a few negative things about my age regression experiences. For one thing, whether or not you experience age regression, if you want to use a pacifier for whatever reason, it is paramount that you use proper teeth protection. If you're like me and you've had issues with teeth alignment in the past and have had to get braces, Invisalign surgery, or anything like that, only use a pacifier when your retainers are also in your mouth. Otherwise, you'll risk undoing all of that hard work and misaligning your teeth again. And even putting aside the matter of pacifiers, it is so hard to find clothes for age regressors. So many adult clothes are solid, dull colors, and it makes shopping really hard, especially when it comes to finding colorful or patterned shoes. It even goes beyond clothes. Kidcore items for adults in general are near impossible to find. You'll be hard-pressed to find an adult pacifier maker that isn't involved in age play stuff, and it can be really disheartening when all you want is a cute, space-themed water bottle with one of those sippy spouts, and the best the internet can offer that's big enough to give your adult body a substantial drink is... But by far, the biggest negatives about being someone who age regresses are how difficult it is to open up to others about it, and all the misconstruing surrounding what age regression is. But that's the whole point of this video, to be more open about it and to properly inform people about it so that they don't misconstrue it as something it's not. And in order to do that, since I've gone over the negatives, I think it's finally time to tell you all the positives I get from using age regression as a coping mechanism. First of all, I find that it's a lot easier for me to fall asleep when I'm in little space. All my life, I've tended to struggle with falling asleep at the proper time, especially in regards to staying up on my phone way too late. But when I'm in little space, it's so much easier to fall asleep, probably because Tiny Me has better routines than I do normally. He brushes his teeth more regularly, loves putting on lotion after baths, reads books, prefers physical play to computer or phone play, and, like I said, falls asleep more regularly. But more importantly, it changes the way I view the world. I'm more happy, more naturally curious about little wonders that adult minds don't tend to think of. I'm already a pretty happy person outside of little space, but in it, it's amplified by like 1,000. Mundane things stop being boring, and I want to just look at everything really closely, to learn about everything I can, and to simply find fun in every corner of what I encounter. Remember when I said Tiny Me reads books? Yeah, well, Big Me has trauma associated with reading books, so Tiny Me is actively healing my trauma. It really is amazing, and like I said, it's completely harmless, and I'm in full control of it. I choose when I go in it, what I do in it, and when I leave it. There is never going to be a time when I'm like in the middle of something adulty that's really important, like I'm at Social Security for whatever bullcrap reason, and then all of a sudden I'll just start scribbling on the paperwork and singing, "Old MacDonald had a farm." That's never going to happen. But you know, I can't really blame people for not knowing much about age regression. Not only is it something that isn't really talked about in general, but it also doesn't have much media representation. Like, for this video, I googled canon age regression in media, and among the first results you'll find are the TV tropes and fan lore pages on the Fountain of Youth and de-aging, respectively. And, shock to no one, neither of those are age regression. They may be methods for the show writers to write characters in a younger state, but both of these also affect the characters' bodies and physically make them younger, which is something that age regressing just can't do. Typically, when these tropes are used, it's not usually something that's a conscious or unconscious decision. Usually it's either something that just happens for the sake of happening, or if a character is pursuing it, they're not doing it for the sake of age regression. They're doing it to pursue eternal life. These tropes are, by and large, an excuse for the writers to tell the story that isn't the norm, and since it's a story vehicle and not a character trait, it's not really something that can count as representation. In truth, the only actual representation of age regression I could find comes from two characters. You didn't mishear me. There's just two characters across everything I looked for who canonically age regress. Let's start with probably the most often heard of character when people discuss age regression, Nurse Bendy from Moral Oral. To quote her character entry on the Moral Oral wiki, in most settings, Nurse Bendy appears to be little more than a stereotypical dumb blonde. Whether she's following Dr. Potter's wheels demands or tending to patients herself, she's usually depicted as incompetent at her job and possessing no desire to improve. In order to cope with her past sexual trauma, Nurse Bendy age regresses to a childlike state. Through playing house with her stuffed animals, she fulfills her dream of being a great mom with an unconditionally loving family. Yet despite living in her dream house, Nurse Bendy is still on edge that her hubby bear might take advantage of her just like other men have. When he falls on her alone in a suggestive way, she immediately panics and later ties him to his chair. If you'd like to look more into Nurse Bendy, I highly recommend checking out that video from Fiona Paulo I mentioned earlier. You'll find the link in the card above as well as in the description. But be warned, the video contains triggering content, so please heed the trigger warnings that she provides. The other character who canonically age regresses is one that actually surprised me. I haven't watched Metalocalypse for a good few years now, and there's a lot of content that I haven't caught up on. So to find out that Toki Wartooth is a canon age regressor was quite a pleasant surprise, since he was always my favorite character from the show. According to his character entry on the Metalocalypse fandom wiki, in Metalocalypse Army of the Doomstar, after being kidnapped by Magnus, Pickles is shown to have taken on a more maternal role to his younger bandmate when he age regresses. He is seen regressing during a memorial service for Ishnifus Meadle. I don't know if I pronounced that right, I'm sorry. During this regression, he has an outburst of crying when he thinks he's in trouble, is more physically affectionate, and bothers Squizgar by grabbing onto his arm and gently jostling him around. In this state, he also wears headphones which are most likely noise cancelling. He apparently also carries around a teddy bear, and not only does the band he's in accept this, but the show doesn't treat him like a joke for this. His regression is never something that is the target of ridicule or humor. According to a post from Tumblr user Little Space Imagines, even Murderface, who usually hits below the belt with his insults, just goes with it. So even though there is very little in the way of representation, at the very least, what representation does exist is accurate and positive. And thankfully, if there's one thing I've learned about age regression since being made aware of it, it's that the community is bigger than you would expect, and as far as I've seen, very sweet and very nice. The largest age-re communities I've seen are on TikTok and, more notably, Tumblr, and typically, as long as your account is safe for work, you're allowed to interact with them as much as you like. If this is something you experience and you're finally able to put a label on what you experience, rest assured you are not alone and there are plenty of others like you. And since everyone's experiences are different, I managed to get some responses from a couple of other people who also experience age regression, and this is what they had to say.
Personally, I regress for various reasons. Comfort after a stressful day, relaxation, when I want attention, or when I just get tired of acting my age. In certain situations, like school, it can be good or bad, but it never actually hurts me, just makes things inconvenient. Most times I just regress at home though, so it makes things a lot less stressful. If I'm in a safe space like my room, I'm fine, not much to get mad at. I have what I need to keep myself entertained while regressed and keep myself feeling safe because I won't be thinking about grown-up stuff. I'll just be baby mode, calm and relaxed. With friends I tend to bug them more and want to cling to them, but I made sure they don't mind.
I guess the primary reason I regress is to attempt to feel things as I felt them when I was younger, as in being more curious about smaller things and finding enjoyment in things I haven't enjoyed in a long time without becoming overanalytical or cynical about it. It makes me feel small and nimble, and everything around feels spacious, and I feel giddy and bubbly. I feel like it should be good for me, though the process of entering that mindset has been starting to reveal and confirm some internal things I've had for a while. But when I started talking with others who regress, I found that little me feels his best and warmest when talking with friends. It's helped him become more chatty. My friends have made him feel safe, and since then I've been trying to think of ways to spark his childlike joy and wonder again.
So, with all this being said, what about everyone else? What about the people who don't age regress? What can they do? Well, obviously, basic respect is a must. Don't make fun of people who regress or try to make them feel insecure, and don't treat them like they're regressed all the time. If you're not sure, ask them how old they feel and simply treat them based on their response. But at the same time, don't feel obligated to take care of a regressor if you aren't their caregiver or they don't want a caregiver. If they are in a state of regression, stay away from topics of discussion and activities that you wouldn't have with a child, especially sexual topics and activities. When a regressor is in little space, they cannot properly consent. If you're looking to become a caregiver for a little, I highly recommend talking to the regressor about what sort of things they need, as well as going to Tumblr to do some research. Like I said, Tumblr is one of the sites where the Agery community is the most active, so you'll find a lot of good resources there. But most importantly, if you do not regress and you want to support regressors without needing to be a caregiver, it's as simple as sharing the truth about people like us and defending us from people who try to push an incorrect narrative about what age regression is. That and basic respect is really all we can ask for. I'll leave some helpful resources I found in the description. Feel free to check them out. All in all, age regression is a fascinating coping mechanism. I experience it firsthand, and in truth, everyone does to some degree. It's not about avoiding responsibilities associated with adulthood, but rather, it provides a chance to nourish your inner child, to rediscover the joy and wonder that often gets buried beneath the weight of adulthood. And because of that, I think it shouldn't be dismissed as something wrong or misconstrued as a mental illness in and of itself. Instead, I think it would do larger society good to embrace it as a powerful tool for personal growth, self-discovery, and healing. But what do you think? Do you experience age regression? Did you learn something new? Or do you think I missed something? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're there, it would mean a lot if you could like the video, subscribe, and share this around wherever you like. Special thanks to my stellar supporters, Sierra, The Tense Trocieth, MR's Awesomeness, and Imagineverse Studios. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. But for now, this Starboy's gotta blast off. Peace out, starlings!